I think I've had more progress getting rid of swing thoughts than adding them for most people. So you go through the checklist and keep digging because there's something in there that they're trying to do, whether they think they are or not.
Welcome to the Approach podcast. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Molly Braid of Molly Braid Golf. I was going to do like a big introduction because I hear that on the other podcasts where, oh, Molly Braid is this and that. And I thought maybe you could do that for us. Yours was pretty lengthy.
Well, thank you for thinking of me and having me today. It's a pleasure to speak with you, and it's been a while, so it's fun to see you.
Yeah, welcome.
So, lengthy, I don't know, but I've only been a golf instructor, so I guess that might be why it's my only background as far as professional career goes. Similar to other people, I picked up golf in high school and played it in college down at Pfeiffer University. Met my future boss there, Dana Rader. She was an alumni of Pfeiffer, and she owned and operated a golf school in Charlotte, North Carolina. So after college, I was lucky enough to be her teaching assistant, and then she brought me on as a full-time instructor. Fell in love with teaching golf then and just haven't looked back.
So was golf part of your family? Like, did your parents play golf?
No, I actually came from a dairy farm. So loving what you do and working hard is in my family, but golf is not. I did not grow up at a country club or have a whole lot of exposure. There was a resort near my parents' house, and they gave junior golf lessons during the summer and camps. I was the youngest of 9 cousins and siblings. I have 2 older siblings. They all went for lessons, and I would watch them go when I was too little to do it. And so then when I was old enough, I, of course, wanted to try it out. And from memory, I think I was pretty good then, but no one really told me that. So I did it for a summer and moved on to other sports, played a lot of basketball, soccer, and softball. And my dad is a big golfer. He loves it. He loves to play golf. He loves to visit with people when he plays golf. His love of the game is there no matter whether he's having a good day or a bad day. So when I showed some interest, he was more than happy to take me out with him. He has always said from day one he would help me scramble, but he won't help me with my golf swing. So I was pretty lucky in that way, I think. So he really shared his love for the game with me and found me a good teaching pro to work with. So.
Okay. Do you still speak with that teaching pro? Who is it?
So Bob Hanlon, he actually was an assistant at Wingfoot under Claude Harmon and took a lot of his teaching philosophy from Claude. And I worked with him a lot in high school, but when I went to college, we didn't have FaceTime, we didn't have the video analysis that we do now. So being in North Carolina, I just kind of fizzled out from getting golf instruction, and I would still see him if I went home for Christmas. Actually, when I was working at Dana's, I made a trip to see him as well to get a little bit of help. He was towards retirement probably when I went to college, and then he still hasn't retired.
Okay.
But he doesn't get to teach a whole lot, so he's still working in a shop. But just a really good mentor from that side of it. Always encouraged me, and he could get me to hit it pretty well pretty quick. So I always knew he was on the right track.
Awesome. Okay. So you worked for Dana Rader and then you had your instructor. How do you think of your philosophy as it goes to golf? Like, what is your swing philosophy and when you're working with a student?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, right? I kind of feel like I've blended a whole lot of philosophies to create my own. Dana Rader was a really big advocate of fundamentals. And when I say fundamentals, it's not just like, oh, I check your grip when you come. It's actually like, is the club sitting in the right place of somebody's hand atomically? Can they move their wrist? Because it needs to sit in a specific place. It's not just about whether it's strong or weak. She was very detail orientated, and she felt that way about all the fundamentals. And so that's really my base. And then I've been really lucky to spend a lot of time with Mike Adams and a little bit of time with Lynn and Pia out at Vision54. So very opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to the technical side of golf and the performance side of the golf game. And kind of blending that so that it makes sense to me before I kind of went out and tried to teach it. The reason I think it works well is that I can help people in different ways depending on what their goals are for the lesson and their goals are for their golf game.
Okay. And you have a degree in exercise science and sports medicine. Do you utilize
I
that a
do.
lot in your instruction?
I do. I mean, I also had gone through a TPI certification too long ago to tell you how long ago. And I felt like that kind of helped bridge the gap a little bit between my degree, which of course is pretty broad and did get into some of the performance side of sports, and then understanding how people's bodies move. I'm glad you bring that up. I think that's one of the most important things we can do for our students is help them reach their goals in a way that they physically can. That might mean adjusting how they stand or how they hold the club so that they don't hurt the shoulder they just had surgery on or whatever it might be.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah, I just went and saw Mitch this morning. So, do you
Right.
send, like, are you getting into it that deep with your students? Are you sending them to try to get loosened up if they can or to do some of that stuff?
Yeah, I still do some of the screens. I've never considered myself an expert in that though, and have always tried to have a little bit of a network with, a strength and conditioning coach like Mitch, having um, a physical therapist or two who I have actually been to and had experiences with, just to be able to refer people that direction if we think that might be something that's coming into play with their game for sure.
Okay. And moving on a little bit, you coached college golf as well,
I did.
and you won awards for it and won some conferences. Tell me a little bit about what that entails and how that experience may help you with your students these days.
Sure. So, I mean, a little background to coaching at Ithaca College. I had just gotten married. My husband was going to Johnson School of Business up in Ithaca, New York. So, I actually left Dana's golf school and didn't have a job up in Ithaca. I wasn't quite sure what I would find up there. There weren't really any facilities receptive to having a teaching pro come on board, or they already, felt like they had enough people there who could teach. So that job came up. Dan Wood is a PGA pro. He was retiring women's golf team. I thought, well, I could try. I could bring some sort of value, I'm sure. And so I kind of inherited some really good players. Um, the athletic director really encouraged me to be a great recruiter. So I knew that it was a hard school to recruit for just because of the academics and the cost of attendance. So it was kind of twofold. It was challenging in a lot of ways, having to learn everything about coaching and knowing I was going to only be there for 2 years. But I knew I could help the current players, and I knew I could bring in some players who would love Ithaca, whether they were going to play golf there or not. And so uh, it was kind of a side road. I learned a lot, but I knew it wasn't something I was going to be doing the rest of my life.
Okay, so you're not looking for a job around here with coaching golf right now.
Yeah, no offense to the college golfer at all, but I'm going to stick to my current job.
Sounds good. So let's get a little bit into your instruction. You spoke about fundamentals. What does that look like? And are you as detail oriented as Dana is, or are you a little bit off of that, looking at different things? How do you utilize fundamentals in your golf?
Sure. So I think Mike Adams might have been one of the first people I heard say it this way. But I know that Dana's since passed, so I haven't been able to ask her some of the things I would like to. But I know this is how she approached it as well. But we only have a few connections, right? The connection to our club is our hands, the connection to the ground is our feet and our stance. So I believe that the way players put their hands on the club dictates how their hands and arms move. I believe that dictates how their body moves, and vice versa sometimes. So I am very picky about the fundamentals being the correct fundamentals for my students. I do not need the grip to look anything like the same from one player to the next. I don't need posture to look a certain way. But when we test out how someone should put their hands on the club or what their posture should look like for them and feel like for them, then I expect them to be able to come back and keep repeating that so that then we can see some progress in what's going on with the ball flight.
Okay. Um, and rotation, where do you fall on rotation? Because a lot of times with posture, your rotation's going to suffer if you're not in somewhat decent posture. So, what is your stance on some of those things?
Sure. And yeah, it's kind of completely dependent on how that person moves without a golf club, in my mind. I want to see how they pivot when they're not swinging. And then if their body likes to move that way, let's move the club like that. If somebody has a little more sway without a golf club, I'm going to let them move and we're going to figure out, that's probably part of their power source. So if someone naturally needs that, let's not take away a big part of their power just because on paper we're not supposed to sway.
Sure. I couldn't agree more with that. So, and then you've taught everybody from college golfers, your experienced golfers, your new golfers. What have you found when it comes to teaching? Are you leading the charge? If they come to you and say, "Hey, I think I'm doing this," and are you just starting from scratch kind of with them and trying to lead them in a direction to get better? Or do you have any people that are more challenging that you have to convince that that's not what they need to do?
I see what you mean. So I think again it kind of depends on their goals and why they showed up on my lesson tee. I always want the instructor, or I'm sorry, I always want the student to be in charge. They are coming to me with normally a set of clubs. They're coming to me with a certain way that they move, and they're coming to me with a belief of how to swing the golf club. So it's my job to help them figure out if their goals are here and something's making it so they're not reaching it. I can help them figure out, okay, have you been fit for your clubs? If the clubs look good and it doesn't seem like the ball flight is doing something against what their swing looks like, then we can probably rule clubs out. Do they have physical limitations that they don't even know about? I ask people about surgeries, ask them about any pain, whether they're playing golf or not. And sometimes, like we know through TPI screens and all the different professionals we have to help us with that, sometimes people can't do something that they think they can. So, I'm kind of figuring out is it physical or not? And then it just boils down to what they're actually trying to do. And even beginners, I think, have a certain idea or concept in their head of how to swing a golf club. And it's really important to know what it is. I think I've had more progress getting rid of swing thoughts than adding them for most people. So you go through the checklist and keep digging because there's something in there that they're trying to do, whether they think they are or not. So to me, it's not so much a challenge of, making them do it my way or making them change what they believe, saying, let's test it out. I know you feel like the ball position should be in the middle, but what I'm seeing, maybe we should try it. Let's try 5 balls a little bit forward and see what it looks like. So I think the more you test it out with players and let them experience it themselves, the easier it is for them to find the best way for them.
Yeah, I find a lot of success in education as opposed to like just straight instruction, where you tell them, so this is what we're trying to do and this is why we want to do it that way. And it just kind of like frees them up. Well, forever I was told I should be doing it this way. Well, obviously that doesn't appear to be working for you, and it's not actually doing what you are hoping it would do. So I love to educate the golfer and just try to give them frame of mind. I just think that helps them with comprehending what it is that they're trying to do, less confusion.
Yeah, and I think, we teach a lot of people who have, had experiences with other golf instructors or other golf pros, and it's important to tread lightly on that, whether they spent a lot of time or a lot of money on that. I never want to make someone feel like they are working on the wrong thing or just because somebody says something different than me. To me it's like, well, it got you to where you are. Let's go from there and maybe some of it will sound different or look different, but I wasn't at that golf lesson. So either you've overdone it or you've underdone it or you're just kind of coming back to old habits. Who knows? But I think that's important for instructors to think about too, that It's all perception.
I love to hear, like, I like to ask the question about, if you had golf instruction and what were they telling you so that we don't have, how can we work with what you've already learned to help solidify some of these things? So I do like to hear what they've done in the past and how they, sometimes it's just the way they said it, where it's totally right and it makes sense, but it just didn't click. Do you have any favorite drills or things you like to provide to your students that help them, that they can take with them?
Again, I don't use like just one or two drills with everyone. It depends on what their goals are, what they're working on, what their body can do. One thing that has been interesting, EA Tischler down in Chicago makes a rope that you can swing. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
It's kind of weighted depending on your swing speed. Man, I use that thing a lot.
Do you? Okay.
Just for a lot of sequencing and just kind of whether it's somebody who's hinging the club and they don't need to hinge it so much because it doesn't lever, or whether it's getting them to feel what their body's doing when they're not holding a golf club, the sequencing part of it there. So yeah, I've actually used that quite a bit for different reasons and put people on different uneven lies and have them swing it and feel the weight change. And um, I don't, like I said, I don't just use one thing, but for some reason it feels like in the past year I've used it more than other things. But no, otherwise I'm always trying to pull it from the student as far as like a drill or something. I feel like I'm making it up on the spot a lot of times to relate to that student more. I was just teaching someone in the simulator here who was having trouble pushing off on the right side, and she's an athletic lady, and I thought, man, there's got to be something that we can do here that, instead of just push towards the target. And she's a skier, so I'm like, okay, we're going down the hill, you're in a ski boot, you're in a ski, you can't just tip up onto your toe, right? We're not just kind of rotating around our right hip. So she was feeling like she was getting on her inside edge of her ski and pushing off. And instantly it changed how she moved because her body knew how to do that. So I kind of try to do that with every student, find something they do, a feeling they have already, relate it back to that. Makes learning a whole lot easier and I think a lot more fun for them.
Yes, I find a lot of tennis players that would not swing a racket the way they swing a golf club, but it's actually very similar if they would just allow themselves to do it. So that's
Mm,
another.
yeah. I need to take some tennis lessons. That's one of my goals is to be able to relate to the tennis swing a little better.
Okay. I am, that's too much running in tennis. I'm not going to do that. Avoid that. So I'm going to get into a question that maybe you haven't gotten to see yet. So we were just discussing at work the other day about like the real money is in creating a problem and then creating the solution to that fictional problem, right? Like that's how you make your money. Do you think golf has created any problems and then also created the solution for that problem that helps them?
Well, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of time to read into everything that's going on with the USGA, but I mean, to me, golf course design and equipment and everything, we've created a golf ball that goes too far and a set of clubs that goes really far, and now our golf courses can't handle it, so now we're going to change the equipment again. So to me, it's like the industry itself is fighting trends that we
Or
created. Sure.
evolution?
The evolution of it, yeah. Which I don't get me wrong, I want my players to use a golf ball that'll go further than the current ones. So,
Okay.
good question.
Got to keep you on your toes from time to
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So you did a lot of stuff. You got a lot of biomechanics stuff in your background and all of that. Do you find people are looking for that more than they probably should be?
Explain that a little bit more for me, Mike.
Some of the technology that comes along with it, call it force plates or something like that. I feel for myself that some people are interested in that actually don't yet need to be interested in that. Like that, I feel like that's a little bit farther, more advanced than some people need to be. So that might be one of those things. Like, do you see any technology stuff that people are really interested in that might not be what they need to be focusing on.
Actually, I would say if someone's interested in technology, awesome. They're probably going to learn better with it. They're going to be pulled to something that they maybe can understand or visualize with it more. To me, we have so much technology at our fingertips that we need to be able to break it down and just show that student the one thing they need to get out of it to get better. So I don't own force plates. I would love to have force plates here and use them out on the range. Do I have tour players coming to me for full swing lessons right now? No. But could I help someone understand just through the visuals they provide or just through the ability to measure the forces in different directions? Sure. It's like the same thing to me with video, or like I teach with Sportsbox a lot. One thing that Dana instilled on I think for all of her instructors was that we need to understand technology. We need to be able to use the technology, but our student doesn't need to know it that deep. So you can take videos of people, but they might not need to look at it. And knowing whether they will benefit from that piece of technology or not is very important, and which bit of that technology. So kind of explain my process a little bit, whether I'm using Sportsbox to use the 3D aspect or I'm using it for the video analysis. When I have someone coming out, I might ask them if it's okay to set up an account for them. I might ask them, is it okay if I take your video? I might not show it to you. They're like, yeah, sure. Sometimes I never show it to them. They might have access to it if they want to go look at it. Sometimes I'll take kind of a before and after, whether it's that day or maybe it's a few months down the road. And then they can actually start to quantify their changes. One of my favorite things to do is just kind of track it for them and then point them at the one thing they need to look at. If someone comes out with an open face and I get a video of them and the way they're moving through the ball with their pivot, maybe they can't actually turn through it because the face is so open. We work on grip. We work on the different drills we work on. They come back and they've done it all themselves, on the range. And to be able to take a video and say, look, you're doing the right thing. Like here, club face is more square because the ball is going straight or left. Now look, you've got 10 degrees more turn at impact. Being able to use that technology to kind of quantify it for the student, I think is the most important thing.
I don't use a lot of technology, especially if I'm teaching outside, but I do find it a little bit more helpful when I'm inside trying to relate messages because there's no ball flight to go off of. But usually I don't use a ton of technology, but inside I find myself relying a little bit more on it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is interesting. Like, I don't choose to set up TrackMan outside a whole lot unless I have someone, like, kind of to your point, interested in the numbers. But inside, I think it is interesting to see the learning that goes on behind the numbers when people start asking questions. A lot of times I'll take them off, but to have them there and not pointing at them, not telling them, not drawing their attention to something, but then to be able to go back and look and say, well, this is why, and here's where we made that change, and now look at the numbers here. Depending on who you're teaching, it's pretty valuable.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely with that. Um, do you have any books that you would recommend to our readers that
Man,
you
all of them. So, are we going teacher, like books for instructors or books for
for
golfers or
students? Let's talk for
students?
students.
Yeah. So, I think Mark Broadie's book, Every Shot Counts, is awesome because anyone can get better from it. He's a Columbia professor who's just kind of made shots gained a whole lot more understandable for the average golfer. He also breaks it down into different handicap groups, so you can start to kind of see, what area you fall into and what your expectations could or should be based off of your handicap. So that to me, I think it's a little daunting because it looks like a textbook, but people take a little time to kind of look through it and find what interests them, they can take some shots right off their scores instantly. I think Dr. Debbie Cruz's book and Vision54, Lynn and Pia, all of their books are invaluable. And I know everyone always wants to buy the newest book of someone's, but to me, if you start from their first book and read through to the last, they all make a whole lot more sense. And every time you read it, you gain, whether it's from your perspective or an understanding of what they're talking about. I think they could help any golfer.
Yeah, and going back to Mark Brody's Every Shot Counts, like And then your use of the word expectations, I think, is so important. People standing over 12 footers that look short and they're trying to make it, and then they three putt from there. And, understanding how those numbers actually work and, who's actually making 12 footers and then where you fall can change your mindset. And I agree 100% with that. Yeah, very good books. I'll put some links to those books in the show notes as well. Be a player and
Yeah,
all their
they're,
little things that they've got with that and all their little
yeah,
cards and stuff. A lot of fun. It really, really
sure.
helps.
I agree completely. I think the podcasts that are out now that people are doing and shedding more light on kind of what it is, what performance is, and why every golfer is trying to do it. They just might not know it.
Hmm.
It's not
Yeah,
mental, right? It's performance. So whatever sport we're playing, you have to perform. So yeah,
that's
it's a
right. I
good,
just big dance competition last weekend, and you could
yeah,
see it. Yeah, where they're thinking themselves through instead of dancing, and it just slows it down so much. And it same thing happens in golf, the play box and the whole deal there. So yeah, absolutely. Anything else you'd like to add? Are you taking students?
that's an interesting topic. I mean, winter time is when I kind of take a little bit of time to look over the last year and look over the trends from golf schools and different things. I think it's going to change a little bit in the new year. So I have appreciated the support of the referrals and recommendations from our members. And
Okay. Well, that was Molly. Thank you so much for being on. It's so nice to have you in our little group here, and um, you have a wonderful winter, and hopefully we don't wait as long to talk next time.
for sure, thanks for having me. Thanks for your time today.